She's got to explain. She was a wonderful employee. She had a great attitude. She was a lady of character, and she was warm, and she was willing to help anybody out.
A mother of two shot to death in her driveway in Cincinnati. Then police say her killer drove her body to Tennessee, where he led deputies on a chase. Thanks for joining us here on Law and Crime. I'm Anjanette Levy. Caitlin Lynch's family and friends buried her in New York on Monday. Now we're learning more about her. Lynch was shot to death on August 18th in the passenger seat of her own vehicle in Cincinnati while it was parked in her driveway. Neighbors on her otherwise quiet street tell me they heard gunshots late that night, but didn't see anything. Police say this man, Lance Miller, shot Lynch and then drove her body to Tennessee down I-75. Deputies caught up with Miller on Saturday, August 19th, after using technology to track Lynch's vehicle.
Upon taking him into custody, there was a deceased female that was in the car.
Captain Scott Moore of the Wilson County Sheriff's Office says a deputy tried to time when Miller might be passing through along I-40 outside of Nashville and stood watch.
And so he sat up there, had a pair of binoculars, and could see off from a distance and saw the vehicle, what he thought matched the description of the suspect. Immediately got in his car, and as he's passing through, the deputy gets immediately behind him, and he don't activate his emergency lights right off because he wants to wait till he has some backup around the area, given the situation we're dealing with here.
Captain Moore says about 6 miles later, deputies tried to stop Miller, but he took off. They chased him for 50 miles at speeds topping 100 miles per hour.
At that time, Metro Nashville activated their aviation unit in order to observe the suspect in case he was to get away and that type of thing. And then we went to Cheatham County where his tires were spiked out, and we were able to stop him.
That's when deputies found Caitlin Lynch dead in the front seat of her vehicle. Tennessee authorities charged Miller with abuse of a corpse, evading arrest, and being a fugitive from justice. Oddly enough, it's not the first time Miller has run from police.
The police have kind of laid back.
News helicopters in Oklahoma City captured police chasing Miller on July 31st.
Now they're going to bring him out of the truck and take him into custody here.
So all of this begs the question, why was a man from Texas and then Oklahoma in Cincinnati, Ohio with Caitlin Lynch? Lynch's former boss, attorney Jim Hartke, explains.
She was talking with a friend of her deceased husband, a person by the name of Lance Miller. Lance Miller was a little down on his luck and wanted to get a fresh start. He was living in Oklahoma at the time. She said that she invited him to come to Cincinnati, and she would put him up in her basement, strictly as friends, until he got a job and was able to get back on his own and get his own apartment. I told her I didn't think that was a good idea.
Hartke says Miller had been in Cincinnati for less than a week when he murdered Caitlin. Hartke says Miller and Lynch were at his office hours before she was killed.
And she confided in me because we were friends, and she was a great employee, that he said he was in love with her. And she said that this was not the type of person she wanted to develop a relationship with other than friendship. And so she was a little put back off by his comments. And I told her, I said, well, be careful, you know.
Hartke says Kate, as he called her, said she had checked out Miller and knew that he had been in some trouble in Oklahoma. She was a former police officer and still worked part-time in law enforcement. Hartke says he learned Miller shot Lynch with her own service weapon.
He found her service revolver and shot her with it. Subsequently, he took her phone and put her in the passenger seat and put the seatbelt on her, and then drove her across state lines into Kentucky and heading down 75 towards Nashville.
Lynch was the mother to two girls, ages 7 and 8. A balloon on the front porch of her home says "Forever in Our Hearts." Meanwhile, a GoFundMe page set up for Caitlin Lynch has raised more than $72,000. Lance Miller has waived extradition to Ohio, so he could be back in the state anytime to answer to those murder and kidnapping charges. For Law and Crime, I'm Anjanette Levy.